Hey, welcome everyone. I'm really glad you're here, and I'm glad you're healthy. Today it's mid-March, and 3 weeks ago, life sure felt a little more normal. Remember? It was the end of February. You were probably living your normal life back on your college campus. You may have been with your new member class. Some of you, I think, were attending NGLA or maybe another leadership conference. You probably had a big test that was on your mind, or maybe a big date that was on your mind. So, what if in that last week of February, I had told you that in just 3 weeks, 41 states will have closed all public schools, that 95,000 US public and private schools would be shut down? That would affect over 44 million school students. You would have thought I was crazy. If I had told you that over 300 universities would cancel all of their in-person classes and move online, no way. If I had told you there was a virus that swept across the country, that millions of people were going to be quarantined in their homes, that the term social distancing would become a rally cry on social media, if I told you that government mandated restaurants to be closed, movie theaters, that church services were moved online, or that hospitals and doctors' offices were at full capacity and they urged people to stay home. And those same medical professionals, they were suggesting that this might be the beginning, and they didn't really know where it was going to go from here. I mean, Haley, that sounds like sci-fi. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And it's so scary and it's so weird. Like this stuff is weird and abnormal. I've been eating chicken every day. Like I love chicken. Chicken wings are my love language, but y'all, I'm sick of eating chicken, right? Like I want some normalcy back. I want my normal life back. And I think we're gonna get it. We're gonna get there, but we just have to figure out how to make it work in this time. So I'm right there with you, Josh.
Right? Like, so check this out. Where I live in Indiana, my grocery stores, the shelves are empty. Right? We can't even get chicken right now. Right? Like, I'm visiting with my neighbors down the street, my friends and my family on FaceTime. Like my daughter this morning, she was on a video chat with the kids in her second grade class because that's the only way they can see each other. Like this is bonkers, right? Haley, I guess this is real. I think everybody tuning in right now knows how real this is, but we have a platform where I think we can send a message to just clearly say uh, this isn't something to fool around with. Like
Mhm.
what do you think everybody needs to hear right now, especially college students that are tuning in.
I want to eat something else besides chicken. I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm just kidding. We gotta add some humor when we can, right? I think the reality is, y'all, this is real. This is real. Sis, I'm sis. She is me. I am her. Has been watching Netflix, and I don't know what else I can watch, right? Like I feel like I've watched everything, but y'all, this is real, and it reaches people in different ways, right? People are experiencing this in different ways. Some people don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Some people don't know if they're going to be able to keep the lights on or pay their bills when this whole is over, like when all this stuff is over. People don't know if they're still going to have their jobs, right? Like some people maybe not don't want to pay their dues because they don't see that we're having chapter or they don't see the value in it, right? So we have to be the people, we have to be the essentially hope dealers, which I'll talk about later, like the hope givers in this moment, in this time, y'all. Stay at home, right? Even though I'm not at home. Shout out to Virginia Tech for letting me work in this office in the time being. But stay at home, love on people right from a distance, chill, don't go out in groups. I'm so excited about a quarantine and chill date. Like that's so lame, but I'm so excited, right? Like I got to get my priorities in order. But yes, we really have to take this seriously and not lightly. So yeah, Josh, that would be my message. Yep.
Yeah, I feel all that. It's like, look, here's the deal. I don't know what next week's going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what next month is going to bring, let alone August and September. I know what the title of this session is, and I know why we're here. Um, Man, I'm not going to pretend to know the future, so I'm just going to stick to what I do know.
Mhm.
So I've spent my entire professional career, like over 20 years, helping fraternities and sororities grow, and especially during tough times. Like I want everyone who's tuning in to hear that I believe in the power of fraternity and sorority, and I believe fraternity and sorority is needed right now, probably more than ever before. And I'm going to continue to advocate for you, and I'm going to continue to help students prepare for a summer and fall that may be, listen to this, may be very different than 2019. When you can kind of do this activity with me if you would, everybody. Think back to 2019, April of 2019 through October of 2019. And I'll give you a second. Most of us were able to make assumptions last year about how we would approach our organization and growing our organization. We can make assumptions about scheduling, about the academic year, about housing timelines, about traditions and routines that we've been doing forever, about events to host, about things we attend, about a lot of things that right now we can't be sure of. I think all we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure when it comes to the next few months. And so here's what I'm going to do today. Haley and I are going to name 4 possible scenarios that are worth discussion right now as we start to prepare and think forward toward what the rest of 2020 could be. These are not the only 4 scenarios. In fact, far from. And Haley and I don't have perfect answers that we're going to go solve them all. But we can help get the right conversation started early to give you the best opportunity to be able to make adjustments. We can give you resources now to help you navigate the changes that are likely coming. So real quick before we do that, Haley, there's probably some people maybe that are tuning in and probably some that aren't, that might be thinking that fraternity and sorority isn't really what any of us should be thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that recruitment is probably the last thing that we should be spending time on. And I don't know, I feel that, but I have some different opinions, and I want to ask you what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think let me start by saying this, friends. We don't have all the answers. We don't. But we do believe that we have all the right people here at the right time to figure out the right thing for fraternity and sorority, and whatever that may be. We have it right here in this moment, and we're going to figure that out, right? And so I think for all of our campuses, for all of our chapters, for all of our communities, the reality is that getting the right people to join, it's not about yard shows. It's not about stroll offs. Y'all, it's not about how much cool stuff you have on your table at the event fair, right? It's not about voting rounds or door stacks. It's not about chants. It's not about t-shirts. It's not about having a recruitment guide. It's not about any of that. It's not about any of that, right? To get more of the right people to join, not just anybody, but more of the right people to join, it's about creating connection. It's about real connection, not the hi, my name is, I'm from here, here's my major, right? Like, and then I just smile and leave, right? And I forget your name after that instance. It's about real human to human connection in the moment. It's about
Mhm.
taking real life. It's about like real life stuff, like, oh, I got you type of connection. Right. If you feel that, like, click the emoji, the claps, right? I need to see like some affirmations. Like, it's about real connection. It's not about the fluff. Yes, clap it out, right? And I think we can do that. We can do that. We just need more of the realness. Okay. It's funny because I was in a candidate's interview recently for an institution. I'm that nerd. Like when I'm in the area, I'm like, oh, somebody's interviewing and it's the public can come. I'm gonna go, right? Because I'm lame like that. And I was there, and the candidate spoke about this idea of fake love in higher education. Now, fake love is not a new term that he came up with. Drake, the great philosopher Aubrey Graham, right, also known as Drake, he's a rapper, came up with this song. This talked about like fake love, right? Fake love, fake energy. And he was saying about in higher ed, we've confused kindness, right? We've confused this idea of kindness with fake smiles. When really kindness is really about genuinely caring about other people. It's about human to human, like connection and something genuine. Like, how you gonna request to be somebody's friend on Facebook, but you don't talk to them when they're right next to you, right? Like that. Like that's the fake love we're talking about. We need to make real connections. We need to be honest with ourselves. We need to be true to our purpose, our values, our missions, whatever it is that we stand for, whatever it is that we want to represent. We get to do that every single day through the reactions, through the interactions, I'm sorry, that we have with other individuals, right? Through the interactions we have with other individuals. We want to invite you to engage with us during this time. And Josh will talk about the logistics of using this platform with the chat feature and all that kind of stuff. But really jump in with a thought, an idea, or even a question, because we're better together. I know cliche, but it's the facts, right? Like the reality is that we're all in this together. And whether or not your mind is on recruitment at the moment, or oh my God, how are we going to get these new members? Or we were supposed to have a new member show, whatever it is, we want to offer some solutions that when and if this time comes, we are here with you and we are ready. Because if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So we know this is weird. It's so weird. Oh my God, like it's so weird. I thought my love language was chicken. It might not be, right? It might not be come April because your girl is sick of eating chicken. But guess what? I know one thing's for sure. My sisterhood is through the roof. The way I'm experiencing fraternity and sorority is completely different than maybe what I've experienced in the past. And that's what we want to elevate. That's what we want to advance. That's what we're here to do, right? I'll say this last thing and then I'm done, Josh. I like feel like I'm on a soapbox, right? I think it's important to name that fraternities and sororities are more relevant, are like relevant now more than we've ever been, right? Like we're needed in this moment. The desire for connection to others, the need for a social outlet, or dire need for a sense of normalcy is so real. It's so real, right? I think about the other day when I was on Snapchat, and yes, me and my line sister still use Snapchat, like whatever. And we have a Snapchat group, and I was like, "Hey y'all, like I'm cooking waffles, like I made a video. How are you spending your quarantine and chill day?" And we learned about a funny story that one of my line sisters had an interaction. Well, it might be inappropriate, but it was just a fun day where everybody tapped in and shared a video, and we got to see what we were doing in real time, right? Maybe we all couldn't FaceTime at the same time, but we all got to experience and interact with one another within that 24-hour period. So we're excited.
Mm-hmm. Haley, every time you talk, I just smile and I feel like I want to click that button with all the claps. I was thinking this morning I was on a phone call with Mike McCree at the NIC, and we were both just kind of venting a little bit and said, "Gosh, this term social distancing, it just feels like we've given the wrong words to what's needed in this moment. We need physical distancing, but we need social connection, right?" And man, I think when we get deeper into this session about what do you actually do to make growth happen and work in a tumultuous time, like connection has to be there, right? Hey, if y'all don't know us, I'm Josh Arendi. I'm a co-founder of Phired Up. My good friend Haley Mangrum, she's the smart one on this show. That's true. That's true. If you're somebody who's tuning in right now, you can see a slide up that has our contact information. I want to encourage you to connect with us. You certainly can follow along. You can DM us. You can even call or text us. Those are our real phone numbers. And Haley and I were laughing about this earlier. Those really are our real numbers. And if you could do that not at 3 a.m, that would be our preference. But we want to hear from you whenever. So we're just, we're here. We're trying to stay connected, and we're trying to reach out with a lot of love to everybody. I want to give you some logistics for this call. Hey, the technology that we're using is called AnyMeeting. We're just using that technology to host a good conversation. If you are joining live right now, this is an interactive experience. What I'd like you to do is post your questions and your comments in the chat window that's on the left side of your screen. And I have some good news. Haley and I are going to be pretty busy doing this part. And so you'll probably notice there are other members of the Phired Up team, other people passionate about growing organizations like we are. And they're there to be able to jump in, answer some of those questions, and maybe share some resources. So you don't even have to wait on us. That said, at the end of our session, there's going to be time for Q&A. So I hope you will post some of those great questions because we're going to answer as many of them as we can get to. Please note that if you're watching this as a recording, you're not going to be able to see that chat feature or any of the comments from people who are live right now. But speaking of the live recording, if you want access to that live recording, you can get that link on the Phired Up YouTube channel or social media channels, and we'll have those ready for you as soon as possible. Bear with us. It might be a day or two. We're figuring this stuff out too. And last final announcement, logistics. At the end of this session, Haley and I are also going to provide some free resources. We're literally going to show you some slides that you can access to be able to take back to your council, your chapter, and your organization that reference nearly everything we talk about. And so don't panic if you miss something. Know that we got you, and we're going to make sure you're taken care of at the end. So look for those slides. Okay, so Haley, here's what we're going to do. Let's jump into those 4 scenarios. About 3 weeks ago, most of us couldn't even imagine, where we're sitting right now. So, gosh, I mean, what could life be in 3, 4, 5 months from now? What if recruitment is canceled? Now what? Well, here's what I think. I think that fraternity and sorority will never be canceled. I actually think you're too important, and I don't think you'd let that happen. I think bringing in new members and introducing them to fraternity and sorority is too important for any of us to ever take a semester off, especially at a time when sisterhood and brotherhood and connection, belonging, peer support are desperately needed. I do think it's possible, however, that formal recruitment or student activity fairs or orientation or other familiar parts of a traditional recruitment process could be restricted, altered, or canceled altogether. And I think it's responsible for us to prepare for those scenarios. So I'll begin walking you through those 4 scenarios. Haley, you're going to help me out with the slides. In fact, you already have, because you're awesome. Here's a scenario. Imagine that come fall, school is 100% online. No one comes back to campus, or there's another scare and another shutdown. In this scenario, students are not permitted to return to campus, and classes are exclusively online. No on-campus housing, no sports, no tailgating, no convocation, no orientation, no in-person events, no work weeks, no traditional recruitment like we're used to, or efforts to control the virus may reverse. In fact, there could be another spike. We don't know. And if that happened in August or September, students on campus might be quarantined again or encouraged to go home again. Is that extreme? I don't know. Maybe. Is it impossible? No. So is it worth a conversation to think about and strategize about and create a possible scenario for a 100% online semester? I think in the most extreme case, that's probably worth dialogue. Haley, I have a second scenario, and then I'm going to ask you to maybe speak into both of them. What if in a second scenario, there was a gradual return to campus? What if returning students and new students and faculty and staff were experiencing prolonged illness or choosing to self-quarantine, and they were encouraged to stay home as long as they needed to? That perhaps, just perhaps, those who are medically cleared come back in, I don't know, why don't we say September or October or November or December, and all of a sudden nothing feels familiar about who's coming and going from campus. In that scenario, I would say it's still a stretch, but it's not crazy given the limited information we have right now about this virus. There's even a little bit of precedent to suggest that a virus or a pandemic like this doesn't just fade away. As it fades, it may have bumps or spikes as socialization reemerges. And so, Haley, I'm kind of a glass half full type of guy. I'm not an alarmist, but I'm curious, when you think about solutions, When you think about responsible ways that we could take action in either of those two scenarios, could you talk into maybe what comes to mind for you?
Thank you, Josh. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that, and I know y'all like, oh my gosh, she's touching her face. My hands are clean. I promise. I know that's what everybody says, but my hands are clean. When we talk about the pre-member experience, and when I say like we like Phired Up and Technify, when we talk about the pre-member experience and recruitment or anything that happens before you're a member, we aren't just talking about recruitment, right? We aren't just talking about recruitment. We are choosing to prioritize the importance and significance of authentic relationships. We're choosing to prioritize being socially excellent over content with the status quo, right? We are prioritizing leaning into curiosity and like a sense of curiosity of discovering what could be rather than waiting and following along of what has to be, right? Like we're prioritizing the real stuff and we're not sitting back and waiting. When we talk about the pre-member experience, this is what we're thinking. And here's the deal, right? Forget the processes that we're used to, forget the rules that we voted on, or the rules that we voted on that we didn't even know we voted on, right? Like, or forget the restrictions and choose to prioritize humanity, right? Like choose to prioritize compassion, choose to prioritize the values that your organization was built on, right? These rules that we can be so afraid of breaking or so afraid of, you know, not following, or oh my God, I'm gonna get an infraction, or oh my God, I'm gonna get a fine. Sorry, like I'm not gonna pay a fine. But what I will say is that they weren't created for times like this. They weren't created for moments like this. So let's focus on the book and more focus on reaching out and being overly generous to students who could become members of our organizations, right? The members that we so desperately desire, and possibly potentially need. But it only works if we choose to have a willingness to be generous, authentic, vulnerable, and curious, because everything else that matters in fraternity and sorority, seriously, like everything else that matters in fraternity and sorority depends on it. The organizations we admire so much and love depends on it, right? So here's some things that I'll throw out to consider, or questions we may begin asking ourselves, whether you're a professional talking to students, or working with your office teams, whether you are a student leader working with your leadership team or your chapter, or just campus like stuff in general, whether you're a headquarter professional or you're a volunteer, figuring out how are we going to support our members and how can we be on the ground without being on the ground, with that support. So here are some questions that we may begin asking ourselves and considering in this moment. What does a fraternity and sorority experience look like without in-person human connection or relationships, right? Like, well, not relationships. Our relationships can and should be stronger than like any Wi-Fi connection in the world, right? Like, remember that Ethernet cord thing? Like it should be stronger than that, right? Like we shouldn't even need that to connect with one another, but somehow we've relied on this sense of like human, like we have to be sitting next to somebody. I was literally talking to, I'll give him a shout out, the director of Fraternity Story Life, Rosan Settle. He's a member of Phi Tau. They just celebrated their Founders Day. Happy belated. And he said to me, he was talking to a student leader, a chapter leader. He's like, "Oh, we have our new member Ed, but we're just going to cancel it and postpone it to the fall." I'm sorry, why? like why? Like why are you postponing engaging your new members when you already have them? You already have them. Why are you postponing that to the fall when you can still connect? What are you were complaining when y'all had to go to these meetings in the first place. Now you can be chilling on the couch, you know what I'm saying, in your little robe, or, kicking back and relaxing and in your own environment, or whatever that may be, because I realize everybody's not in a safe environment that we may assume them to be, but we can still foster deep connection. We can still foster brotherhood. We can still foster what it means to be in a purpose-driven social organization rooted in relationships that stems from a foundation of values from a phone, from the internet, right? Like we don't have to be in the same room. So no, your new member education doesn't have to stop and go into the fall. First of all, new member education is continuous, right? Like how are we continuously educating one another? How are we continuously building upon relationships? How are we building a stronger web than we already have, right? I just want to throw that out there. Another thing that comes to mind is how can we maximize or capitalize on the strong connections we already have to foster some new ones? So I'm sure we all may know another person who's struggling. We all may know another person who is like, I need to FaceTime somebody, right? Let's meet that person. That's what it's about. We need to grow our networks because we can't recruit who we don't know, right? And they're not going to join what they don't know. So let's elevate that and maximize on the time we have right now. What do virtual social programs look like? Right? What do virtual social programs look like? How can we engage in spaces socially, like virtually, by showing up for others in the time of need for human connection? So I want to shout out, I'm giving like all the shout outs today, Josh, but I want to shout out, I seen this on Instagram yesterday, the Omicron Iota chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at George Mason University, and they posted like this cute little post. Shout out to their PR chair of marketing, like sis can design, like whoever that is, like career, like goals. Okay. Haley's still working on Canva, but like goals. All right. And it was like a post that said like keeping up with OI, and it's the virtual programming experience. Like that's what it's underneath. Like, heck yes. Like, yes, ladies, like let's get on top of this now and let people know you might not see us, but you're going to see us, right? Like you'll be connected to us. You may not be able to come to our program, but we're going to stay connected with you. I want to shout out Delta Tau Lambda Sorority Incorporated at Western Michigan University. Go Broncos, my undergrad. But they have a different member of their chapter taking over their Instagram story every day, right? And it's not just like, hi, like, hope you're quarantined and chilling, like, and you're safe. Like, it's legit. Like, ask us a question. Here's what we're doing, like, real selfies. Like, here's why I joined, and it's the real answer. And it's a great example of what it means to be genuine and vulnerable, right? Like Matt talked about this earlier. When we talk about vulnerability, we don't mean, all right, everybody cry. Let's, like, let's cry. Let's talk about our deepest, darkest moments in our lives. We mean taking a chance on sharing something. I start every presentation I do, besides this one, with this slide that says, we all have something to give. And I thoroughly believe we all have something to give. That's all vulnerability is about. What are you willing to give, or what are you willing to share for somebody else to unleash, or somebody else to unveil something, or somebody else to come in and feel comfortable or feel safe or feel included, right? They were doing that. So this stuff is not, it's not essentially rocket science, although like I don't know what rocket science is like, but it's not super hard. It's not easy, but it's not super hard. It just means we have to do it with intention. Right? And so I also suggest these other things like virtual engagement fun. Josh talked about like seeing somebody, he said this the other day to me about like video gaming. And I don't know nothing about video gaming, but your girl was about to download an app to figure out I need some games to play, right? Like you got games on your phone. Like that was me, right? Like what am I doing? Like I'm sick of watching Netflix and chicken. Like what else is there to do? And like there are people who can set up game rooms, or you can still play games and compete with one another or whatever, and offer that sense of community, like from wherever you are. You don't have to be in the same room. You don't have to be on the same campus that we love, or in a chapter facility or wherever that may be, right? Virtual Netflix watch parties. I know most people have seen this already. Live discussions, right? Some live discussions. So I've said earlier, some groups are using their Instagram to go live and just talk to people or connect with other students that are on campus that maybe are in other organizations. And so this is a time for collaboration and civic engagement. What hashtags are incoming classes using? What platforms are they on? Are there any groups, right? The class of X, are they in any group me's or any special groups? We need to essentially immerse ourselves and infiltrate these systems or these spaces in a sense of like, hey, we're here. Because again, we can't recruit or we can't select who we don't know. And if they don't know we exist, we'll never be able to fulfill our mission and the things that we're supposed to do on campus in the first place, right? So we have to literally like infiltrate these spaces positively, right? But get into these spaces. Where are they? Go there, right? Connect with folks and be in those spaces. Josh, did you have other thoughts on this?
As you were talking, one of the things that I started thinking about is a lot of the councils and chapters that I get to communicate with, they have traditionally set up processes and expectations that potential new members or non-Greek students have to find us or have to, we're going to set this up so you have to register, you have to come to my event, you have to find me. There's this sense that I'm going to show you the best of what we are, but you have to physically come and experience all of our members and come to this thing we do. Y'all, social distancing, like nobody's going to come to your stuff, right? Like they don't want to touch you, right, in your dirty hands. Like there has to be a different approach, right? Of like, how are we now, you use the word vulnerability, how are we going to have care and proactivity and connection in a way that we're going to now look to our campus communities, probably online, probably through social media, that we're going to proactively reach out to those incoming students and students who don't have a fraternity and sorority family to be able to demonstrate and showcase what the best of Greek life is. Like that's leading with our heart, right? And that's taking some risk. And that's why I like that you use the word vulnerability. It's also very different from how we have systematically set up the growth process in the last several decades. And so it's going to feel different and strange. But if we walk into either of these first two scenarios, I don't know that there's an alternative. There may not be a thing for everyone to show up and come to. And so we've got to get creative and reset expectations about how we reach out. Haley, I thought that was brilliant. Can I shout out a couple other organizations that are doing some pretty cool stuff? I had a conversation with Delta Sigma Phi, and real proud of them. Did you know that they're doing online initiations right now? That their headquarters are hosting new member education modules and helping with online initiations for their spring new members. I thought that was awesome. Now, I thought I'll give you another great example. Y'all know, this won't surprise anyone on the call, but technology advances. I'm a huge fan of Chapter Builder, as most of you know, but shifting to an online platform that allows us to grow our relationships and track our relationships. Shout out to groups like ATO or Pike or Alpha Sig that have provided those resources for all of their chapters. I was thinking about groups like SIGEP and Beta, or ones I'm familiar with that have built really good, robust summer scholarship programs that are giving them an opportunity to reach out with value to incoming students early in the summer, to be able to set those, to be able to showcase their organization, as well as build relationships with some top tier students. And, I think about groups that I'm familiar with, like Sigma Chi, Acacia, Fiji, that have done a really nice job leaning into alumni referrals and legacies. And then groups maybe like Sigma Alpha or Alpha Kappa Psi, AE Pi, AGR, that have a niche organization, a niche to their membership base, and do a really, really good job of reaching out early in the summer months to students who share that passion for a major or have that similarity in religious belief or whatever that niche might be for the organization. So I think the point that I want to drive home is encouraging students to be caring and proactive in their outreach, I think might become the new normal. And that isn't what was normal before. Before we were waiting to see who showed up. Would you agree with that, Haley? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, well, why am I not speaking? Because I was on mute. But absolutely. I think about specifically in my experience as an undergrad within an PhD sorority, it was all come to us, right? Meet the Greeks. These programs titled Meet the Greeks. Why do I want to meet you? Right? Like let's answer that. Like, why do I need to meet you? How are we actually answering the questions that interested students may have with the titles of our programs, right? How are we being conscious of the way we market and promote, which I know Matt will talk about in some strategies next week in the next Fired Up Fridays. But how are we being conscious of our environments and the ways in which we engage with students prior to them coming to our program, right? Prior to them actually meeting us, and we have to go meet them. We have to infiltrate these spaces. And when I say infiltrate, that sounds so bad, but y'all know what I mean, right? Like we have to immerse ourselves and be around so people, oh, I know who to go to if I have a question, or I know these people are here for this, right? Like they need to know that we exist. And the only way to do that is to genuinely begin real relationships. Mm-hmm.
Love that. Hey, Haley, on this slide, we did a pretty good job, I hope, of, and maybe they'll tell us in the comments section, number 1 and 2, right? Like those are some extreme scenarios that could happen, but I wanted to shift gears. Let's look at number 3 and 4. Let me kind of set the stage for 3 and 4, and then I'm going to ask you to maybe walk us through some tangible solutions. So in scenario 3, let's imagine that there's a continuation of social distancing. Health professionals might continue to discourage large gatherings. And when we are gathering, groups are asked to make sure that there's no more than, I don't know, maybe 10 people or 25 people that gather, for example. So like, for example, right now, there's a 10-person guideline that's come down from the White House. So I don't think that's crazy talk. This would mean that there's no in-person full chapter meetings, no tailgates, no mixers, probably no yard shows, no theater seminars on class, no buffets in the cafeteria, maybe no event-based philanthropies, no traditional homecoming, no Meet the Greeks, no student organization fair, no traditional IFC or Panhellenic formal rush, no chapter or council-sponsored weeks of events, maybe even no traditional bid day. So in that scenario, we'd all be on campus and we could continue to do small stuff with each other, but most of the full chapter traditions or events that we're used to, that may not be an option, and we might need an alternate strategy. Scenario number 4. What if everything goes back to normal? Sort of. We're able to do all the same stuff, but it feels different. And what if we're all a little bit different come this fall? What if student perspectives and priorities are a little different? What if student choices about time and money and relationships are a little different? What if the way we see the world and the future is a little different, and maybe their parents are even more protective and even more involved? Maybe things like big, tall rush boards all over campus, or door stacks, or t-shirt designs, or party rounds, or interest sessions. Maybe those start to, I don't know, they just feel different to our members, and certainly to the students that they're designed to attract. Maybe the health scare's over, so we return to school with plans to do the same thing that we did last year, but we discover that our recruitment plans are the same as last year, and everyone involved in those plans has changed. So, Haley, in this scenario, this 4th scenario, I think I'm keeping in mind that it's possible that the majority of the incoming freshmen, for example, will be a few months removed from, I'm going to call it just a life-altering experience. This is what on my mind. I've got a niece that's a senior that I've been thinking about, and in her senior year, it's so possible that the experiences that I cherished could be ripped away from her. Like legit, like no spring break, no prom, no graduation ceremony, no yearbook signing, no final day of classes that I get to hug my friends, say goodbye. Like all of the things that I think about and cherish from being a high school senior, right? If those were ripped away from me, how would I have approached college differently? I don't know. So maybe that's too deep, but like I want to say that even if recruitment and fraternity looks and feels normal, the students that we're charged with caring for, our newest members, they might be totally different. What's your read on that?
Mm-hmm. It's hard, y'all, because we don't know, right? Like we don't know. And I see the chat right now for the people who are watching this later is booming. It's booming, yo, like having like, hey girl, hey, it's booming. But I will say we don't know, right? Like nobody knows. But the only thing that comes to mind, y'all, the only thing that comes to mind is that we have to be better storytellers. We have to be better storytellers. We have to be better we have to be better at serving hope, at serving compassion, at caring for others. Like there is no, all right, if we finish this checklist, we will master recruitment or intake in this new normal. There is no there is none, because we haven't done it yet, right? We haven't done it yet. We haven't experienced it yet. So there will be no blueprint. So all there is hope. All there is try and attempt to figure it out. Right. We have to have hope. So when we think about this, right, and somebody said we need to be positive, right? Like we have to be. So when I think about having more one-on-one conversations, right? Less group meetings, maybe less large group meetings, and more personal invitations, more check-ins, right? More actually like caring about another human being, right? There's a need for us to, again, virtually tell our story, the story of fraternity and sorority to all audiences, right? Parents, prospective students, current administrators, current students, and also help people understand ways in which they can become members. Okay. It's especially crucial if, in fact, summer orientation is canceled and that was our only avenue, right? That was our only avenue to connect with freshman students, right? Consider connecting with the personnel that will be branding materials to ensure you're on brand, right? Like you are connecting and you're on the correct platforms and having shared language that is applicable to the masses that will appease to what people are looking for. I think it's okay. I've seen some chapters and some offices do this. Shout out University of Kentucky. I've been seeing it on their Instagram stories where they're shouting out their seniors and they allow people to tap into their Greek, like they're in their Greek communities that are graduating. And that's super huge, right? Like that's super huge. I think about I think about our registration forms that we've relied on to learn about our member or learn about the potential members. So when we think about when let's take Panhellenic for instance, right? Panhellenic may have opened up registration for a formal recruitment process that's going on in the fall, in the summer, or in April, or something like that, right? And we have all these questions on the form, or we have a registration open, but we're not doing anything with that information during that summertime. Now is the time to reach out. Now is the time to reach out. If there are high schools within your local area, figure out how you can connect figure out how you can connect and engage with that community virtually, right? Like, how can you be there for those high school seniors without being there, if that makes sense, right? How can you show them, show up for them and support, even if they're not coming to your campus, still show up, right? Still spread kindness and still recognize them. Because I think people need that in this moment. Erin Chatton, one of our team members, talks about this in one of her blogs, which we'll post later. But it's almost like we've adopted this strategy, like a doctor's office, in our forms of asking, all right, like what's your name, what's your major, what's your email, and your T-shirt size. Okay, great. Tell me about your life. But we could we could ask better questions on the front end, and to like influence. I was like looking for the word influence better conversations quicker. So maybe we ask the basics like your major, your interests, like all that kind of stuff. But then what are you looking to engage in here in college, right? Like what are you looking to gain from a fraternity or sorority? Because what we found is some people, when we ask people on our interest forms or registration form, whatever it may be, your high school involvement, they may get tense, or they may get afraid that if I wasn't involved in high school or if I didn't have this experience, they're not going to select me or I'm not going to be the great candidate. But some people come to college and they don't want to think about high school anymore. They don't want to think about high school anymore. They want to be a new person. They want to discover new opportunities and new things about themselves. And maybe, just maybe, we can tap into that on the front end with the questions we ask. I do think if we think about it, if we frame our conversations, not even using the word recruitment, but about selecting more of the right people, we have to be there for people. We have to be there for people. And I think that's the first thing that we can do. Again, the main thing I'll say is hope dealers, which I'll talk about as we close out. But we have to be these dealers of hope. We have to be these dealers in not necessarily rays of sunshine, because everything ain't butterflies, right? Like everything is not butterflies. But how can we make it real in a way that's, oh, I got you, or I'm here for you, rather than, yeah, everything's gonna be fine, great, see y'all soon, and it's not. It's actually not. So let's own up to the stuff on the front end and be there for people in every way that we can. Josh, did you have other ideas?
Oh, I just think you present everything so good. I don't even want to try. That's good. That's real good. Hey, can I ask you for a favor, Haley? Will you advance the slide? I want to give everybody some resources. When Haley and I thought about what are helpful resources we could give everyone on this call, these are some very tangible examples of things that you can use with your students or that you can use personally. We don't need to go through each one of these. I'll let you read the slide. But I'll highlight that the more personal we can make recruitment, or the more personal we can make reaching out to students and caring for them, especially in this time of weirdness. Like, we can call it chaos, or we can come up with words. It's just weird, right? And like, everybody's in a state of weirdness. And the more we can do these smaller activities, one-on-one meetings, personal outreach, caring for people, the more we can let people experience fraternity and sorority before we even ask them to be in fraternity and sorority. That's just being a good human. There's also, in addition to these resources, there's some technology that I think will help us to reach out during times when we may not be able to physically be present the way we want. We may not be able to have the events or the gatherings the way that we typically or traditionally would. Haley, let's do that slide next. Here are some technology recommendations if you or your students are looking for ways to reach out and create connection when you're not able to be physically present. The Phired Up team is experimenting with all of these, and so we're not giving you blanket random examples here. I mean, these are all things that we're doing actively together and doing with students. And so we're speaking firsthand here. These aren't the only technology options, but these are ones we can speak from an informed perspective that we know are being used right now in an effective way within our industry. And so we hope those are helpful. In addition to these resources, I want to keep giving you stuff. Literally, I just want to keep being generous and giving you more free things to help. Haley, will you show everybody the best way they can follow along and keep getting more free stuff? You've already got your phone out. If you would, jump into Instagram or whatever social media you like and follow along. We appreciate the follow. I don't have to be shy about that, but mostly I want an easy way to be able to keep caring for you, to keep a relationship going, and to give you more stuff to be helpful. And so we hope you'll follow along. This is a great time to take a couple of questions. Matt Matson, who led the 1 o'clock session, is actually in the background moderating for us. And he said he'd help us out pulling a few questions up. Matt, would you help us to pop a few of those? Oh, here we go. Looking for ideas to keep new members engaged until we can schedule an initiation. Ooh, Haley, you want that one?
I got it. So I believe Aaron posted something in the chat feature, but there will be a resource popping up on our site very soon about fostering the sense of siblinghood within chapters. Here's my idea, right? Here's my mindset. In what ways would we do it, right? In what ways would we do it anyway if we weren't in this like quarantine environment? And how can we do that virtually? Essentially, all it would have been was camaraderie, right? It would have been connecting about something. Maybe it's a discussion, right? Maybe it's an event. Okay, we can't go to the event, but we can host an event virtually, right? What is it that we can dive into and engage that we need to learn more about one another, right? What do we want to accomplish in this organization? What are the things that we want to change, right? What are the things that we want to happen that we've seen on the front end, but now we have the opportunity to do that? How can we engage with them? I think some managers, some supervisors, I would look at that kind of stuff, right? Like the people who have, and they're not employees, let me be clear, new members are not employees, but I think about some of the coolest jobs right now, including Phired Up. I love where I work, right? But they are supporting their employees like no other. They are checking in and they're on their employees like no other. How can we, and why aren't we fostering that same energy in our organizations, right? Why aren't we doing the same thing, right? We can still foster siblinghood and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. What you doing today? Or, you know what I'm saying? Hey, let's all order from Uber Eats. It's on a chapter. And then we'll FaceTime, but you can't exceed this amount, right? Like, what are ways that we can truly engage? Again, forget the rules. Forget the rules. Forget the rules, right? And don't get mad at me when I say that, but I'm being for real, right? We have to try new things. We have to be there for people because nothing about being there for somebody is in the rule book, right? Nothing about it. So that would be my feedback.
I love it. 1,000+ people typically register for formal rush at my school. What's the alternative to big gatherings, party rounds, etc.? Ooh, them being honest. Yeah, well, I would say for me, the earlier that we can connect with potential new members and the more personal we can make the experience for them, the better we're going to be. I'm also going to give a shout out to Matt Farrell and some of the members of the Phired Up team that have helped to be able to push resources around making um, the recruitment process more personal and smaller on campuses that have large registrations or a big process. And so if you're looking for some examples, I'm sure Matt's in the comments right now, just with a big smile on his face. He's got a great blog that he just posted this week. I'm sure he'd love to share. And then also some additional resources around ROCI programs and how to use counselors in a unique way, how to small group instead of just large group all of our recruitment functions. So I think those are the type of approaches that'll get you closer to the answer. Haley, would you add anything else?
Nope, I think that was spot on.
Ooh, are there any dangers we should prepare our students for as they attempt to proactively recruit, make friends, and be vulnerable online?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, Josh, and then just hop in there because it's the only thing I probably got. But I think the first thing that comes to mind is don't like spam somebody's DM, right? Like don't go overboard. I think it's a matter of okay, we won't see them in person, but let's go find them. Okay, I'm gonna message everybody, right? Like there's no need to do that, right? I would be conscious of that as much as we can. But how can we invite people in? How can we show up for people? In ways that are subtle that then lead to meaningful connection, right? So if you're DMing everybody the same message, copy paste, chances are some of them are friends. They may be like, oh yeah, I got the same message from home. Yeah, I got the same message. Okay, right? Like they may think it's essentially spam. So how can we genuinely reach out? Those are the things that I would think of. Those are the things I would err on the side of caution about. Josh, anything else?
Well, just the way I'm reading the question, Trevor, this is a good question, so thanks. When I see the word danger, I immediately think that this may be more about like cyber personalities or getting catfished, or I think about craziness, right, of like the internet and people take on weird personalities. I actually wanted to address a different fear. Most of the students I'm working with, they're just fearful about rejection or about coming across as creepy or not knowing what to say. And so sometimes if you just lead with the heart and if we can give our members something meaningful and valuable to share with people, that's the inroad to being able to empower them to feeling comfortable reaching out. And so a good example is right now, if you were hosting a peer-to-peer conversation about the realities of being a student at your campus during the time of the coronavirus crisis, students were talking about that in an online forum, and you could share that link with other incoming students, that's an engaging piece that's kind and caring and opens the door to a conversation. One random example, but I think we need a little bit more of that. So I hope that's a tangible answer. We've got time for one or two more questions. Looks like here's another one. How can I get my chapter to be excited about recruitment, A, when they dread it when we're in school, and B, at a time like this when it's the least of their worries?
Mm-hmm. My immediate thought goes to why aren't they excited in the first place, and how are we addressing that piece? I think we can solve a lot of what's wrong with like things in the world or things with systems or processes if we look to the root about okay, why aren't they excited instead of still trying to get people excited about stuff they're not excited about, right? So my mother is trying to get me to eat these fresh green beans, but I want fried green beans, right? But she keeps sending me fried like green beans, and when I hear green beans, I'm thinking of fried, right? And so when she served, maybe that's not a good analogy, I don't know, but like she served me these green beans and I don't want them. And then she's gonna say, "Oh, but look, I put it on a, I served it with chicken this time, but the green beans are still there." So if we haven't addressed the root, I think we're not gonna get to where we need to be. I think it's time to, and we have some resources on this on our site. We have to put humanity back into fraternity and sorority. I've seen a question on there about dues, right? Why? How do we get people excited about paying dues? Here's the deal: dues aren't necessarily all about the financial component of the organization, right? Like it's not all about that. But if my worry, for the most part, if that's my first question is regarding dues, then the sisterhood, the brotherhood, the basis of our foundation is already torn. It's already damaged or could be, because that's my first thought, right? And so I think about the ways in which we can engage folks, engage our communities, engage our people, right? These are our people. How can we engage our people to just check in? Hey, what is it that you don't like? What if it was like this? Would you like it instead? Or what if we did this? Would you like it instead? Or what are your thoughts? How can we make it a meaningful experience? Really get down to the nitty gritty is what I'm thinking about. Josh, what are you thinking? I also add this, sorry. Um, I know this is the least of people's worries right now, and I wouldn't pressure people to start virtually recruiting people. If they're not ready to put out stories, don't make them. I genuinely think some people need this time to pause. Some people need to just chill. Some people need to just be by themselves. Like let them quarantine how they want to quarantine, right? I don't think we all need to be like, you better be thinking about recruit. Nah, chick, like we don't have to think about that right now if we don't want to. But if we do want to, we're ready for you, right? We're here for you.
Mm. God, I love the way you talk. Yeah, that's smart. Just smart. Absolutely. All right, let's do this. Next slide. Will you help me out with this?
I
Um,
got
there are a lot of great questions that we didn't get to.
you.
I
Hmm.
want to invite everybody who has a question or that asked a question to follow up with me or Haley personally. My email is josh, Josh, at phiredup.com. And you can see Haley or Haley at phiredup.com. Make sure you spell her name right. Now, come on. There you go. And we want to hear your questions and we want to help. Haley, will you go back to the last slide for me? Because before everybody leaves and says goodbye, I want you to see that Fired Up Fridays, they're going to continue next Friday. And I wish and I would hope, and I sure do, sure would like for you to open up your calendar and just go ahead and reserve on Friday. You can join again. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and I'm just glad that we get to be a little helpful in a weird time. I hope you'll join us again next Friday, and that
Hmm.
you'll continue to reach out and stay fired up. Haley, what would you add?
I would add, quarantine or whatever we want to call it doesn't mean we shut people out. It doesn't mean we stop and cancel everything. It doesn't mean we shut people out. Instead, we can think about it as an opportunity for us to bring people in closer to one another, closer to whatever it is they need in this moment, right? Remember, the purpose driven social organizations, we are among the thought leaders, game changers, trailblazers, and history makers. Y'all, we get to be part of that change in this moment, right? That may be what we've been desiring or feeling or for this time. We just didn't know it looked like, right. This is Sean Mays at Cincinnati, and she tweeted this earlier this week. She said, I got her permission. And she said, is this the year we're forced to resign the Panhandle formal process? And I think about all of our councils and all of our communities, right? What have we been doing or too for long? We're just doing it because we're supposed to do, just because that's the way to go. Where can we spend our time? Where can we put our energy into, right? Or pour our energy into that we are learning, right? Remember what we're doing already has been beautiful. The face-to-face type, like in-person face, but some stigmas that with our new member presentation from Tennessee University earlier this week, I've seen it on Twitter, shout out to them, and they're like, to be continued. So it's like a 3-day series or something. Like out to them, right? We can still also we can still make the changes that we have been out to make if we deal out hope, 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 and that we give it a try through the lens of compassion and genuine kindness, right? Not fake love, but genuine kindness, and care about one another, care about each other in this moment. So stay fired up. We're excited. We can't wait to see you next Friday. We know you'll be there. Tweet us, take a screenshot. I don't know, do something, but we're excited to continue the conversation within the industry. Stay safe out there, y'all.